The story begins in a desert where 3 smugglers had come to search for rare items buried under the rocks. After searching for a while, one of the men found a hole in the ground. He immediately called his friends, and together they filled the hole with gas. Within moments, one of them peeked inside, but suddenly, a spider bit him. The man started screaming in agony, and soon, multiple spiders crawled out of the hole. The smugglers quickly began capturing them in plastic containers. Meanwhile, the condition of the man who was bitten kept deteriorating, so the others took pity on him and decided to kill him before he suffered any further. Sometime later, we see that these spiders were being illegally sold around the world as exotic pets. Then, in France, we meet a man named Caleb, who had come to buy jewelry after selling some stolen goods. The clerk took him to his office, where Caleb noticed a plastic box containing a spider. He found the spider fascinating and decided to buy it. After that, he met his friend Mathis, who had a habit of stealing bicycles, while Caleb was a shoe dealer and Mathis helped him find customers. When Caleb arrived home, he saw his sister Manon busy repairing the house. Then, he went to his room, but as soon as he noticed the lights were off, he panicked. He quickly turned them on, revealing that he owned several rare pets that relied on the warmth of the lights to survive. Caleb then placed his new spider inside a shoebox. Later, he scolded Manon again for turning off the lights, as it could kill his pets. In response, Manon shouted back at him, complaining that his obsession was causing their electricity bill to skyrocket. Meanwhile, in Caleb's room, the spider had chewed through the box and escaped. A few hours later, when Caleb returned home, he switched on the lights and opened the box, only to realize that the spider had disappeared. He frantically searched the room, but instead found an egg belonging to the spider. He hid it inside another box and went to sleep on the sofa. The next morning, Manon woke Caleb up, and he saw that one of their friends was helping fix their bathroom. Without showering, Caleb took his new sneakers and went to meet Tom. However, a man named Gillis saw them and suspected that Caleb was smuggling drugs inside the sneakers. Gillis warned him, saying he had been keeping an eye on him. Later, Tom hid in the supplies room to try on his new sneakers. But suddenly, something bit his foot. He immediately pulled his leg out and looked inside the shoe, only to find a spider crawling on his arm. Panicked, Tom threw it on the floor and crushed it with his sneaker. However, when he checked the shoe again, hundreds of tiny spiders swarmed out and crawled all over his body. Terrified, he screamed in horror, while his dog picked up the largest spider and swallowed it whole. Meanwhile, when Caleb returned to his room, he saw his friends staring at his pets. They had no idea that Caleb was illegally buying exotic animals. Just then, Caleb's phone started ringing repeatedly. It was Tom calling, but he ignored it. Finally, after his friends left, Caleb locked the door and stuffed a towel in the gap beneath it. Then, he called Tom back, but Tom didn't answer because he was in excruciating pain. His skin had developed strange wounds, and yellow fluid was oozing from his eyes. When he tried to stand up to pick up his phone, he suddenly slipped, and all the glass containers around him shattered, cutting him badly. A while later, Tom's dog kept barking incessantly, disturbing the neighbors. Concerned, they tried calling Tom and knocking on his door, but he didn't respond. Eventually, Gillis broke the door down, and what they saw inside left them in shock. Soon, the police arrived, but even they couldn't determine how Tom had died. When the neighbors saw the police wearing masks, they became even more frightened. People started arguing over how Tom had died. Some speculated that he was a drug addict who had overdosed. However, the police managed to calm everyone down and sent them back to their homes. For safety reasons, the police ordered that no one should leave the building and assured them that if anyone fell ill, a doctor would come to them. The residents watched as Tom's lifeless body was carried away, and then everyone went back inside. Caleb and his friends took Tom's dog with them, wondering what had happened. Manon accused Caleb of actually smuggling drugs in his sneakers, which enraged him. Meanwhile, we see Zhao, who went into the supply room to put some things away. She noticed that the ceiling was covered in spider webs. She tied a cloth around her face and sprayed repellent around the room, unaware that several spiders had already escaped. Moments later, these spiders emerged in Caleb's bathroom, where Jordy's girlfriend, Layla, was washing her hands. Suddenly, she noticed a vent cover lying on the floor. She climbed onto a stool to put it back in place, but unfortunately, she lost her balance and fell into the shower. As she struggled to stand up, she saw a towel moving. She cautiously lifted it, but there was nothing underneath. Just then, a spider jumped out, and Layla screamed in terror, hiding in the shower. Hearing her cries for help, Jordy rushed to her aid, but he didn't want to kill the spider. He tried to trap it inside a glass, but it quickly scurried under the sink. Soon, the others arrived, all giving different advice on how to deal with it. Frustrated, Jordy grabbed a mop and jabbed it under the sink, hoping to kill the spider. However, the spider climbed up the mop and leaped onto the shower. Jordy quickly threw a towel on it, and stomped on it with his shoe. When he lifted the towel, everyone gasped in horror. Dozens of tiny spiders crawled out. At that moment, even bigger spiders started emerging from the shower drain. Layla was petrified, so Jordy quickly pulled her out of the bathroom and slammed the door shut, sealing it with tape. Afterward, they demanded that Caleb tell them the truth. Finally, he admitted that he had bought an illegal spider, but he insisted that the one he purchased was much smaller. Mathis speculated that the spiders were adapting rapidly to their new environment and growing at an accelerated rate. Caleb then picked up the box containing the spider egg. When Jordy opened it, they were shocked to find it filled with a swarm of baby spiders. Mathis immediately sealed the box with tape. Meanwhile, Zhao continued cleaning the building and found a dead spider. Just then, the police returned and announced that everyone in the building had to remain in quarantine. They sealed off the exits, preventing anyone from leaving. Zhao moved further ahead and discovered even more massive spider webs in the corridors, some containing trapped birds. She climbed a ladder to check a ceiling panel and found it filled with spider nests. Covering her face, she sprayed repellent again and shone her flashlight inside. But suddenly, a spider jumped onto her face, causing her to panic and fall off the ladder. Meanwhile, inside Caleb's apartment, Layla, Manon, and Jordy decided to escape the building despite police orders. However, Mathis chose to stay behind because the police were already looking for him due to theft charges. Caleb also decided to stay, wanting to help his neighbors. But when his friends kept insisting, he finally agreed to leave, though he encouraged the other residents to escape as well. Next, we see another apartment where a man was exercising while listening to music. He noticed a spider behind him in the mirror, but when he turned around, it had disappeared. He searched his room and found it on the wall. When he struck it forcefully, he accidentally punched a hole in the wall. As he peered inside, he saw massive webs. Suddenly, a swarm of spiders attacked him. He screamed for help, but his father, who was sleeping in the other room, didn't hear him. Meanwhile, Mathis and Caleb knocked on neighbors' doors, urging them to leave, but they were too scared to step outside. They also knocked on the door of the man who had been exercising, but the loud music drowned out his cries for help. Caleb then went to check on Claudia. When she didn't answer, he broke down the door and found her lying on the sofa. But when he approached her, hundreds of spiders crawled out of her lifeless body. Terrified, Caleb and Mathis fled. Just then, an old man approached them, pleading for help. Mathis wanted to assist him, but Caleb stopped him after noticing the man had been bitten. They told him to go back inside and immediately ran away. Meanwhile, Layla kept switching TV channels, but none were reporting on their building situation. Jordy searched online and found out that the spiders were of the Sicariidae species, known for increasing their body size tenfold when threatened. Manon checked social media, but there were no government warnings, only frustrated residents tweeting about the quarantine. Suddenly, they heard the sound of glass breaking from the kitchen, and then Jordy saw a strange liquid flowing from behind the door. As soon as he looked inside, he realized that Tom's dog had died, and a spider was emerging from its stomach. Soon, the entire building's atmosphere started to deteriorate. In that apartment, a man found his son's dead body. Meanwhile, the old man with glasses was capturing spiders, but soon, he was also killed. The truth was that due to the terror of these spiders, people were being killed on every floor. Anyway, when Mathis and Caleb returned home, their friends were already outside. They wanted to escape immediately, and no one was willing to go back inside. Suddenly, Gillis came from behind and attacked them with a stick. First, he injured Caleb and then started beating Thies. When Manon tried to calm him down, Gillis shouted at them to go back to their homes. Then Gillis said that Jordy and Leela shouldn't be here because they didn't live in the building. After that, Gillis forcefully tried to enter Caleb's room because he still suspected that Caleb was involved in drug dealing and other illegal activities. But when the others tried to stop Gillis, his suspicion grew even more. At that moment, Caleb, in anger, allowed him to search the room. Gillis searched the room and found the sealed box. He opened it with his knife, and as soon as the box was opened, all the spiders suddenly escaped. Meanwhile, Caleb and his group ran out of the house. They locked the door from the outside to stop the spiders, but poor Gillis was trapped inside and died in agony. After that, they ran downstairs and saw thick webs and more spiders everywhere. Finally, they reached a corridor that was completely covered with webs, and there were extremely large spiders in it. They needed to reach the garage, so they ran to the lower floor, but even there, they found dense webs and more spiders. Now, they had no other option, so they covered their heads and started moving forward in the corridor. Meanwhile, Manon stayed behind to manage the light. The truth was that the spiders stayed away when the lights were on. Somehow, the others crossed the corridor, and now it was Manon's turn. But just as she reached the end of the corridor, the lights went out, and she got stuck in the webs. She lit her lighter and saw a spider approaching her. However, if she set it on fire, the other spiders would attack. So in one swift move, she ran to the end of the corridor. Finally, they tried to escape from there, but the police had locked the door from outside. Even though they pleaded for help, the police ignored them. They all gathered their strength and managed to open the door slightly, but the police released gas on them from outside. Still, they continued pushing the door, so the police started firing at it. Now, they had no choice but to run back through the secret corridor and up the stairs. Fortunately, the gas prevented the spiders from attacking them. But then, they realized that Jordy was missing. Caleb risked his life and re-entered the corridor, only to find Jordy lying on the ground, trapped in webs and surrounded by spiders. Jordy told Caleb to leave, but Caleb refused to abandon him. However, as the spiders started attacking him, he had no choice but to run back. Leela broke down, crying over the loss of her boyfriend. Just then, Mathis noticed a strange liquid. When he looked up, his eyes widened in shock. There were multiple dead bodies hanging in the webs on the ceiling, and a giant spider was emerging from them. Mathis immediately alerted his friends, and they had no choice but to leave Jordy behind and shut the door, running away. They reached an empty room, but Leela kept trying to run back to save her boyfriend. Manon struggled to hold her back, and soon, they heard Jordy's painful screams. At that moment, Mathis noticed a bag on the ground, which contained some fire sticks. As the others mourned Jordy's death, Mathis encouraged them to stay strong because they still needed to escape alive. He believed that fire could help them keep the spiders away and allow them to reach the roof to call for help. First, Mathis lit a firecracker in the corridor, and the explosion caused all the spiders clinging to the ceiling to freeze in fear. Then, using the fire sticks as shields, they carefully made their way through the corridor. As soon as the fire stick burned out, Caleb pulled a petrol bomb from the bag and threw it into the corridor. A massive fire erupted, and the spiders started chasing them. They quickly climbed the stairs, using their flashlights to repel the spiders. Just then, they heard cries for help from an apartment. However, they told the people inside to stay put and kept running. Now, their flashlights were running low on battery, so Manon tried to unlock Gillis' house. Within moments, she succeeded, and they all rushed inside, locking the door before the spiders could get in. After a while, Caleb was overcome with guilt, feeling that he was the reason for the spider outbreak. Suddenly, a light appeared from the window, and a few police officers barged into the house. Caleb urged them to help the other residents, but the police ignored him. When Caleb continued protesting, one officer slapped him. Caleb retaliated, and in anger, the police officer slammed him to the ground and started beating him. Manon tried to save her brother, but the officer pushed her away. Meanwhile, Mathis fought another officer, and soon, a violent fight broke out between the groups. One officer attacked Mathis with pepper spray and started choking him. At the last moment, Caleb grabbed a fallen gun and shot the officer, saving his friend. Meanwhile, the remaining officers threw the two girls into a corner and attacked them with gas. Two officers overpowered Caleb, and finally, the police arrested them all and took them to the garage. There, they saw that the police were already trying to figure out how to fight the spiders. A special team was collecting and examining dead spiders. The lead officer complained that Caleb and his group nearly ruined their mission. He claimed they were only trying to help the building's residents. But Caleb argued that the police had failed in their duty and kept shouting at them. At that moment, Mathis started coughing violently, revealing that he had been bitten by a spider. He didn't have much time left, but he was determined to help his friends before dying. Mathis got up, went to the generator, and shut it down, cutting the power to the entire building. Then, he jumped onto the guard at the door and pushed him away, opening the main entrance. Within seconds, hundreds of spiders swarmed in, and the police started firing at them frantically. Soon, the spiders overwhelmed the officers and killed them, giving Caleb and the two girls a chance to escape. Leela and Caleb hid behind a car, but then they realized they had left Manon behind. Leela used her lighter to unlock Caleb's handcuffs. At that moment, they saw the spiders kill another man. Caleb told Leela to hide inside a car while he went back to find his sister. Dodging all the chaos, he reached Manon, but in the process, he got shot in the leg. Manon grabbed a fire extinguisher, broke a van window, and pulled Caleb inside. She treated his wound and apologized for her mistakes. Soon, spiders began crawling over the van windows. But before they could get inside, Leela turned on the car lights, scaring them away. Then, the siblings escaped the van and ran toward Leela's car. They dodged both the police and the spiders until they finally reached the vehicle. Leela immediately started driving, crashing into multiple cars and police officers to escape. However, when Caleb got out to open the exit gate, a massive spider blocked their way. For a moment, it seemed like Caleb was doomed, but they all remained still, and Leela turned off the car lights. Seeing no movement, the spider quietly left. Finally, Caleb opened the exit door and they all managed to escape with their lives. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.